45 Drives is probably best known for their enterprise storage enclosures that hold, you guessed it, 45 drives. But over the last few years, they have expanded both larger with their 60 drive storinators, as well as smaller into their solid state storage servers, as well as consumer products. But this one sits right in between. This is the 45HomeLab, which is meant for the prosumer or for the professional at home. And it's meant to be everything that you need to keep your skills sharp for the job at home in one box. It's just kind of a heavy box. I've got to kind of, no, I got this. They're trying to step in from off camera to help me, but I don't need help. If you're a longtime viewer of our Linus Tech Tips channel, you'll probably be familiar, oh lordy. You'll probably be familiar with Unraid. Their claim to fame, aside from easy management of virtual machines and Docker containers, is of course the ability to set up a storage array with any mishmash of random drives, even adding single drives to it as you build up your storage capabilities. It doesn't offer the best performance compared to competing solutions like TrueNAS and HexOS, investment disclosure, but it does offer outstanding flexibility. This looked like a lot, but actually it was just the extra modular cables for the Corsair 1000 watt power supply that's inside the system, which sounds like overkill until you consider that as a HomeLab user, you might be putting a GPU in this thing for, running local AI agents, or you might be filling it up with hard drives, which don't use a ton of power once they're spinning, but when they're all starting up at once, can actually spike your power usage. We've also got a couple of extra SATA cables and some metal brackets. Here's all the spare hardware bits and bobs. Makes sense they would include all that, given that while this is a pre-built system designed to have you up and running with your very own HomeLab in like under an hour, surely they gotta expect you to do some tinkering, right? Oh, rubber feet. You might not have a rack. It is, after all, a HomeLab. Let's turn our attention back to the system now. Whoa! Interesting packing approach. They go bubbles on the outside, then like a super dense closed cell foam around the system. Okay. Couple things we're gonna have to do before we can power this on. First of which being, we gotta open it up. Ooh, that's pretty. They've got 4 different front plates that you can configure it with, depending on your style, or you can pay about $100 and you can get a custom one. Ah, there we go. The feet go where these placeholder screws are. There's actually 4 spots for them on each side. That allows you to configure it so you either have it up this way, or, in my case, have it up this way. All right, oh, I did it upside down. all my IO cards are on the top. That was not what I intended to do. Oy. Ow! I forgot there's no feet on that side. I just put my hand under it. Okay. The chassis opens up like other 45 drives enclosures. Just undo the screws at the front, pop the top off, and if you've ever seen one of their boxes, this will be a fairly familiar layout. In the front, we've got a nice looking little SATA backplane there. And in the back is the brains. These expanding foams are kind of costly, but a really effective way of making sure that things like heavy tower heat sinks don't move around during shipping. Back here, we've got a bit of a different build from your typical desktop. While it does have an Intel 14th Gen 20-core processor, that's pretty normal, and so is the thermal right heatsink sitting on top of it, this Gigabyte MW34 SP0 board is a little bit different. It uses a workstation chipset rather than a consumer chipset, which unlocks ECC memory support. Not registered DIMMs, mind you, we're talking unbuffered ECC, and it's actually DDR4 in here, which kind of makes sense in common era, but it does still give you error correction, which helps with overall system stability, which is particularly important when you're running mission critical applications or Docker containers, or just, generally don't like your system to crash. Another thing that contributes to overall stability is hardware choices. So for our networking, they've gone with an Intel network card, an X550 T2. That gives us a total of 20 gigabit per second across two 10 gigabit ports. Then for our hard drive bays, we're using an LSI 9400 16i. So that's up to 16 drives connected and i4 internally. For cooling, we've got two banks of 3 Arctic fans. That should keep things nice and chilly. And then I love these dedicated coolers for all of our M.2 expansion. We've got a CPU connected 110 millimeter slot up here. We've got 3 more 80 mil slots, and then we've got a tiny little 30 mil slot over here. That's a lot of M.2. And that's not the only cool feature of this motherboard. In addition to our 2.5 gig built-in networking here, we've also got a dedicated Ethernet management port. This is great for being able to remote into this system and do things like install a new operating system or even flash the BIOS when you don't have physical access to it. It's a very workstation-y, server-grade feature alongside the VGA port, because those are still really freaking common in the enterprise environment, as well as, I mean, yeah, I guess that's about, I mean, there's a serial port on it, but you're not gonna use that, are you? Finally, back here, we've got our power in as well as our power button. Let's fire it up. Is what I would say, except I haven't actually put any hard drives in this thing yet. Okay, we've got a 4 terabyte drive here. Man, they've made that mechanism tight. Got a random 8 terabyte Iron Wolf. And another one. What is one of my personal drives doing here? But first, this message from our sponsor.
I love meeting up with strangers to buy stuff, said nobody. Ever. Jawa is an awesome online marketplace to buy and sell used PCs and accessories. The best part is they have verified sellers you can trust, so no more hoping that lazy Leonard actually shows up to the mall parking lot. They've got tons of gaming PCs for under $1,000, or upgrade to an OLED monitor and save some money doing it. If you want to skip the hassles of researching, buying, and building a gaming PC for yourself, buy one from one of Jawa's verified sellers with our link below.
All right, first boot. Entering setup. I just wanted to see what they've configured on it. They claim 46 decibels of noise under stress. I am not sure what's going on here. Oh, it's the power supply that's super loud. Now that's something I've not seen in a long time. Corsair's latest RM1000X has a fan control knob? Fascinating. Also, one last thing I didn't mention while I'm back here is 45 Drives has little spots for putting 2.5-inch drive mounting thingamaboobers back here. So it didn't come with them, but you could theoretically add a couple more like SATA SSDs. All right, we in the BIOS now? Hey, there it is. 16 gigs of RAM. Yeah, I can't really expect them to have sent more than that. Ah, yes, virtualization is enabled. We will need that if we want to run any virtual machines. VTD, yes. Enable IOMU during boot. I don't see anything in here that jumps out to me as, oh, you need to change that immediately. The only thing you'd probably want to do is make sure that you set up your BMC network configuration if you want to be able to access this thing over the network. All right, let's get out of here. And when I say access it over the network, I'm talking like over the management port. I'm not talking about Unraid. That's going to be accessible over the network regardless. But they do have a local version, so let's just see how this thing fires up if we decide to just, hey, look at that. Unraid OS GUI mode. Welcome to the Signature series. Wow, this is cool. They customized it and everything. These are just the essentials. Once you reach the dashboard, you can explore thousands of other community-built plugins and Docker containers. Ooh, Tailscale. That's something that's really nice to see them just build in. Tailscale is a way of accessing your server remotely that doesn't involve opening up ports on your router, which is like not a good thing to do. Okay, redeem activation code. Your server included an activation code with this callback. We pre-filled the code below, included by your server. Redeem code. Click to finalize your license. Okay. Show manual install steps. Come on, you guys, just. Is there any reason that I need to do any of this? There's a loading bar here. So can I click to finalize? Okay. Lifetime key installed successfully. Nice. Hey, to their credit, that may have been some random hoops to jump through, but a lifetime key is a lifetime key, and you can't take that for granted in this day and age. Okay, go to dashboard. Here we go. All right. Here's our boot drive. So we've got a, I assume, RAID Z1 boot pool. Mirror. Yep, that's exactly what I would expect. So we could lose one of these drives and not lose any data. It looks like they're partitioned to just 32 gigs, which allows us to use the rest of these drives for caching, I assume. Yeah, data partition. There we go. Yeah, cool. So we can use the rest of this terabyte to accelerate writing data to the server, or for hosting more performance-sensitive files, like, say, for example, virtual hard disks for our VMs. All right, here's all of our unassigned devices. These are the hard drives that we put in. Let's go ahead and configure our array. I kind of wish it had a bit more of a sort of setup wizard, but yeah, what the hey, all right. Oh, this is cool. Show animations. Whoa, man, they've really upgraded this interface. You can see my power cycle count, my power on time. Okay, so these are both brand new drives, and this one isn't. Let's add a pool. All right, feet picks. Now this is important. Depending on your disk configuration, you can configure Unraid to have either one or more than one parity drive. And the more parity drives that you have, the more drives can physically fail before you will actually lose any data. Because we have just 3 drives, I would like to configure our pool with 1 parity drive. So I'm going to assign 1 parity drive, and this is really important. Your parity drive has to be at least as big as the amount of usable space that you want to have on the largest of your array drives. So I had 2 8 terabytes and a 4 terabyte. That means that if I set that 4 terabyte as my parity disk, I would only have 4 terabytes accessible on each of my other 2 drives. I've got to use my biggest disk for that. All right, all existing data on this device will be overwritten when the array is started. Yes, 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 yes. And start. All right. This is a nice little interface. You can see the individual drive reads and writes. That's cool. And we're doing a parity sync. So it is building the parity data to our parity drive that will allow us to restore any of our data drives in the event of a failure. Another really cool thing about the Unraid array is that instead of storing striped bits across your many drives, it stores contiguous files. So even if you lost your parity drive and another disk, the data on your other disk would still exist. That's not necessarily the case for like a ZFS pool. This is another thing I think they could do better though. The startup wizard should really have me, creating a default user that I want to use for things like shares, and root is not the one. App Store, cool. This is where you can find all kinds of fun stuff for self-hosting enthusiasts, whether you're looking for things to help you with backups, or you're looking for things to help you with downloading Linux ISOs. Pretty much if it belongs in your Homelab, it's either here or is something that you can track down and force install. Of course, if you're a Homelabby person, you don't need me to tell you any of that. And for that matter, if you're a Homelabby type person, you probably don't need 45HomeLab to build you up a machine like this. But it's not because you need them to, it's about the convenience. And when we priced out this particular system DIY, or at least as close as we can get, obviously, we don't have their case on hand, for instance, it looks like it's about a $500 to $600 upcharge, which if your time is very valuable, or if you can get your work to buy it for you as part of your tinkering at home instead of on the work infrastructure budget, then hey, it might be something that's worthwhile to you, and we'll have it linked down below. Thanks 45HomeLab for sending this thing over, and thank you for watching Short Circuit.